The question of democracy globally is not just a threat. It is a worrying reality that we witness, whether we are in advanced economies or in Africa. The rise of the right-wing movements and bigotry, especially in civilizations from where we have borrowed our modern practices, cast long shadows across the globe. Freedom House report, Freedom in the World 2021, indicates that less than 20% of the world's population now lives in countries considered free, a significant decrease since 1995. The rise of the right-wing movement, which often challenge democratic norms, has been documented as contributing factor to this decline. These movements have gained traction through populist rhetoric, often targeting and other marginalized groups, and have seen electoral successes in several countries. The erosion of democracy then, globally, is not just a threat, but an unfolding and sad reality being witnessed. The rise of right-wing movements, especially in this civilization, have gained traction through all these rhetorics and ethno-racial hatred with devastating consequences. The global shift towards authoritarianism, with the increased pressure on human and environmental rights organizations and the intimidation of journalists, scholars, and minorities, underscores the reality of democracy's retreat in the face of rising extremism. The situation calls for concerted efforts and rethink, particularly by philanthropists historically credited with standing with the people and fighting for principles of liberal democracy. In the meantime, genocidal wars continues to ravage nations, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair, as exemplified by what I've just mentioned in Russia and Palestine. Unfortunately, the deeper human cost is immeasurable and far-reaching. Indeed, the aftermath of conflict extends beyond the cessation of hostilities as trauma, loss, and mistrust lingers for generations. In the event of war, ladies and gentlemen, recovery and
Alors, en cas de guerre, le rétablissement et la restauration des cœurs, des esprits et des personnes
requires a concerted effort from all sectors of society, including government, civil society, and international organizations. Initiatives that promote dialogue and understanding between former adversaries are crucial in cultivating a culture of peace. Unfortunately, climate justice and the transition towards a sustainable future remain elusive for many, especially for those who bear the least responsibility for the ecological crisis we face. And I'm happy His Excellency is here. He has been intervening all over. We have all our many communities are now submerged into water, marooned. We have lost around 200 people here in Kenya as we speak now. It is a sad reality, but there are those people who do not really accept that climate change is a reality. Climate justice is predicated on the principle that the transition to a sustainable future must be equitable and fair, recognizing that those least responsible for climate change often bear the brunt of its negative effects, as we are finding here in Kenya. Developing countries face a myriad of obstacles towards sustainability. They lack financial and technological capabilities to invest in renewable energy and green infrastructure. Moreover, the historical responsibility of developed nations in contributing to greenhouse gas emissions imposes an ethical obligation to support those less developed in their transition. Sadly, this support is not always forthcoming at the scale required, leaving many developing countries and those in Africa to face the dual burden of development and climate adaptation with limited assistance. Ladies and gentlemen, to truly justify the pursuit of climate justice and a sustainable future, concerted efforts must be made to bridge the gap between rhetoric and action, and radically reform global financing architecture to be responsive to the needs of people and the imperatives of social and climate justice. This also includes honoring financial commitment, especially under Paris Agreement, including on adaptation, transfer of technology, building capacity, ensuring that all stakeholders have a seat at the table. Finally, the widening gap of debt and poverty that plagues countless communities, represents a stark reality for millions who find themselves in a relentless struggle for survival, often through no fault of their own. This calls for the urgent pursuit of justice, fairness, and the inherent dignity of every individual. When we speak of debt, we refer not only to the financial obligations that countries must navigate, but also to a deeper societal debt and deficit of compassion and action. The burden of national debt on developing economies often leads to austerity measures that disproportionately affect the most vulnerable populations, stripping away social safety nets and essential services that could otherwise provide a lifeline to those in need. Poverty, on the other hand, deprives individuals of not only financial security, but also opportunities and choices. It is a barrier to education, health, participate fully in the society. This is a stark reminder that our economic systems and policies often prioritize efficiency and the growth of the well-being of all members of society. This makes moral imperative to address debt and poverty not only clear, but extremely urgent. It also demands for a review of the traditional economic models and metrics through focusing and investing in sustainable and inclusive development initiatives that provide the foundation for long-term economic stability and prosperity for all, not just a privileged few. This entails ensuring equal access to quality education, health care, fair employment, and empowering communities to have a voice in the decisions that affect their lives. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, this conference represents a unique opportunity to galvanize and renew our commitment to create a just and sustainable world. It is an invitation to harness the power of our shared humanity to overcome today's challenges and build a brighter future for all. During the pre-conference held on the 8th, mainly attended by African civil society, a number of concerns were raised, which I don't wish to repeat because for the interest of time, but they are very fundamental for us to really follow. While the challenges are daunting, they are not insurmountable. That's the good news. With concerted effort, strategic action, and a unified voice on the civil society, the youth, indigenous people, governments, UN agencies, and all, we can address these issues and work towards a world that reflects our highest ideals and aspirations. Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mithika, for reminding us so passionately that the future is now and that our problems are not unsurmountable. Please now join me in welcoming the conference co-chairs, Nudara Yusuf and Carol Agengo. Thank you so much again for your tireless work and dedication to this conference and the work that will follow. And I turn the floor now to you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Your Excellency, the President of Kenya, Your Excellency, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, thank you for taking the time and showing up to show that you are civil society champions. We really appreciate it. And as our first speaker showed, this is a civil society space. With all existing protocols observed, excellencies, colleagues, and my wonderful civil society family, here we are at the closing ceremony of the 2024 UN Civil Society Conference. We've made it. Carol, we've made it. Just under 48 hours ago, we set off to write the story of what happens next. What happens from May to September, and what happens beyond the Summit of the Future. To make our biggest statement as civil society, not just one of what we expect from an intergovernmental process, but one of what we can offer to an intergovernmental process. Over the last 2 days, we've seen passion, vibrancy, solidarity, and the unwavering dedication of civil society and stakeholders present here today and online to make a difference to multilateralism. We push the envelope on how civil society engages with intergovernmental processes, from interactive dialogues to impact coalitions, to the latter of which aims to bring together stakeholders working on various issues to create a space to support champion member states on specific reforms towards the Summit of the Future and the implementation process and beyond. The conference itself, held in the Global South, heard voices not usually present in the halls of New York. Intergenerational leadership and partnership was showcased from the Planning Committee to my friendship and partnership with my co-chair, Carol Agengo, to the Intergenerational Hub and youth alumni coming together across workshops, sessions, and here to generate impact. This was an experiment, ladies, gentlemen, and others. There is always room for improvement. But one thing is for sure. We cannot do the same thing we have always done and expect new results. If the Summit of the Future expects member states to be ambitious, to think differently about the way that they work, we as civil society, who these member states often represent, must be willing to do the same. So what have we done, and what story have we created of what happens next? The outcomes of the 38 on-site workshops, as well as those that are online, off-site, the civil society recommendations presented, the questions and insights from interactive dialogues, and the work plans of impact coalitions will be presented in an Impact for the Future outcome package on the 30th of May in New York, in hybrid format globally. We will ensure this process is built on and shared from Nairobi to New York and beyond as one of the many ways that civil society will support the Summit of the Future, and we hope you will join us on this journey. In addition to the UN press releases that have summarized each day of the conference, which have been available on the conference website, on Monday, you will find a note from Carol and me on some of our key personal takeaways on the conference website, alluding to what is to come in the Impact for the Future package from those who engaged in this process after we've had a little nap. We also express our thanks to the 4 major networks that were involved in the planning process of this conference. The major groups, which Carol also represents here, the Coalition for the UN We Need, which I'm proud to be a part of, the Global NGO Executive Committee, and Congo. Thank you to the Department of Global Communications and our incredible Secretariat colleagues for convening this space for civil society to lead, the UN Nairobi office, UNIS, the incredible technical teams and interpreters, security, protocol, and those who are hosting us here in Nairobi and enabled the smooth running of this conference. To our volunteers and youth reporters for bringing energy and commitment, and none of this would have been possible without our incredible, truly incredible planning committee and members and co-chairs sitting here in the front. May we please give them a round of applause. And to all of you, civil society, member states, other stakeholders who are present with us here in Nairobi, thank you for showing up. I firmly believe here, over the last 48 hours, we invited stakeholders into our space and showcased the substance and expertise we bring into a discussion across activists, think tankers, scholars, grassroots champions across civil society. In Tamil, we say, Varapuera, which means when the foundations of our grassroots rise, we all rise. Today, we the peoples have risen, and may the Summit of the Future also rise. Thank you.
Thank you, Nudara. And Carol Agengo, the floor is now yours.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, Your Excellency, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, members of the government of Kenya and the various governments represented here, members of UN agencies, members of the civil society, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow activists. As we come to the close of the 2024 UN Civil Society Conference in support of the Summit of the Future, I am highly optimistic. I am optimistic for many reasons, and I'll tell you in a bit. When Nudara and I were appointed to this role just under 3 months ago, we set out to ensure that the 2024 UN Civil Society Conference in support of the Summit of the Future would be inclusive, impactful, and innovative. We were deeply conscious that the conference would not even begin to scratch the surface of the broad diversity that defines civil society around the world, because this is a global conference. We have reflected these three ideals in the preparations, in the registrations, and the delivery of this conference. We have, over the 2 days, reiterated our expectation of an ambitious and accountable pact for the future, one that truly reflects the needs and aspirations of the people around the world, and where the role of civil society is recognized and upheld. Our appointment remains a reflection of intergenerational solidarity, and you can see that right here. It is also a testament of the immense possibilities that sit in the global South. As a proud Kenyan woman representing Africa as part of the global South, I want to say, again, like I said at the beginning of this conference, that we are standing on what the French call the berceau of riches, where we have resilience, we have wealth, we have the youth, we have the future right in front of us. And from the time we started this conversation yesterday, we have engaged in robust discussions, not always agreeing on issues, and indeed we are wont to. We have forged new partnerships and laid the basis for increased engagement towards a more inclusive, sustainable, and safe future for all. But I want to pivot a little and quote this, quote, "In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians." This was the message that reverberated across this room in the afternoon, catching Nudara and I by surprise, and catching everybody by surprise. But it all resonated with us, and we agreed as we stood in solidarity with our fellow brethren who came and stood here, that the situation in Palestine calls for immediate action. It calls for an immediate ceasefire. And indeed, we are all Palestinians. No, that is not. We finished the picketing. The great diversity of civil society actors and interests around the globe makes it impossible to build consensus over 2 days of this conference and across the depth of issues. There is, however, great opportunity in the post-conference period for civil society to further develop the ideas emerging from this conference in the lead-up to the Summit of the Future in September. As part of the conference, in the official pre-conference, Your Excellency, Kenyan civil society held a mobilization day that Mithika alluded to, and we discussed the Pact for the Future, the Declaration on Future Generations, and the Global Digital Compact. We also discussed the Public Benefits Organizations Act and came up with clear recommendations that we will share from this meeting to the respective government agencies. As Kenyan civil society, it is our desire to see the Public Benefits Organizations Act come into full force so that we can strengthen the way that we engage as civil society. As we look to the future, our work is far from over. We must remain committed to raising the ambition and accountability of the Pact for the Future, informing its negotiations with inclusive perspectives, and ensuring that the commitments made by governments are followed through. In typical CSO fashion, we cannot move away from picketing. We must, however, also use our picketing power to strengthen our collaboration and constructively engage as we picket. For picketing's sake is not meaningful picketing. I'll repeat, picketing for picketing's sake is not meaningful picketing. Our North Star remains the future, where no one is left behind, and where the principles of human rights and justice reign supreme to guide our collective journey towards sustainable development. A future where we nurture the collaborative power of civil society, but also engage from a multi-stakeholder perspective to address issues that are intersectional in an inclusive way. Your Excellency, as I close, I extend on behalf of the civil societies here present, the Planning Committee and the Host Committee, our most sincere gratitude to yourself, Mr. President. We know how busy you are, but you took time to come and be with us. We appreciate that. We also appreciate our gratitude to the Secretary General, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, for flying many miles to come and be with us. We appreciate you and the importance that you put on civil society. I want to say thank you to the UN agencies that have worked with us and to recognize our co-chair who is seated across from us today, Mr. Maha Nassar from the Department of Global Communications. Thank you. And to appreciate UNON and all the people within this compound, starting with who I learned yesterday is the landlady, the USG Director General of UNON, Hawa Bangura. Thank you very much. I'd like to appreciate the resident coordinator, Mr. Stephen Jackson, who's become our partner in crime in many ways. Thank you. But as I close, I want to reserve a very, very special thank you to a group of people. I won't name them all. I will name two because of who they represent. Felipe Kepo, I hope I have said your name properly. He's Mr. Fix-It. He has fixed all the problems that have got us, all the problems so that we can get here and be here today. I also want to thank, last but not least, Sandra Macharia. Please stand up. She has facilitated our being here today. She has opened every door that could be opened. She has held our hand, she has critiqued us, supported us, and we're here because of the team that she leads who have been with us along the way. as I move away from the UN, I want to thank the government officials who have also facilitated, been part of the host committee. Thank you to the PS, who was a civil society activist in his days, Dr. Sing'oei Korir. He comes from civil society, we own him. And we also want to thank Dr. Jackie Yonga, who has been part of the host committee and has availed to us people who have made this possible. And finally, to the civil society actors who are here. Your Excellency, you'll allow me to share a little secret. When he sat down, he asked me, all these are civil society. No wonder we're in trouble. Let us keep the trouble up and let us keep doing what we do. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Carol. And now, continuing with the program, we will hear a statement on behalf of the co-facilitators of the 3 Summit of the Future processes. And the co-facilitators are the permanent representatives of Germany and Namibia for the Pact for the Future. Can you stand up? The permanent representatives of Jamaica and the Netherlands for the Annexed Declaration of Future Generations. And the permanent representatives of Sweden and Zambia for the Annexed Global Digital Compact. And delivering the statement on all of their behalf is His Excellency Ambassador Hola Milambo, permanent representative of Zambia to the United Nations and co-facilitator of the Global Digital Compact. Your Excellency, please join us at the podium. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, Excellencies, Masters of Ceremonies, USG Melissa Fleming, co-chairs of the conference, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to speak on behalf of all the co-facilitators there for the Summit of the Future process. But first of all, we'd like to express our sincere gratitude to all the organizers, to the Kenyan government for all their hospitality during this lovely conference. On a more personal level, I'm so pleased to be here because in the program, my name has been spelled as Ochola, which is a Kenyan name. So I'm very glad to be here. I'll come for a passport, Mr. President. I'd like to just express on behalf of all of us, the co-facilitators, condolences to the people of Kenya for the hundreds of lives that have been lost in the recent floods. At this time of mourning, we express our solidarity with you and the families and pray for a speedy recovery and comfort. Excellencies, this conference has been a very important moment for all of us as co-facilitators. We've had an opportunity to engage with many people, to engage with you on a multilateral level, on a group level, and individual level. And we have heard your voices, ideas, and messages. We have felt your passion. We have heard the messages to turn the words into actions. We have received a comprehensive view of what the civil society's perspectives are about the Pact of the Future, the Declaration on Future Generations, and the Global Digital Compact. We are particularly pleased that we have heard a variety of voices, a very rich variety of voices, including the youth, women, people living with disabilities, as well as the many, many underrepresented groups from various regions across the world. Just yesterday, we heard a very powerful message from a 15-year-old girl from Nigeria who spoke with great wisdom. She reminded us that to adapt intergenerational equity into the declaration of the future. We also heard from Queen Mother, who reminded us that for all the work we do on digital matters, at the end of the day, it's about impact on humanity and acceleration of the SDGs. We heard from many of you expressed in many of your own ways, in many words, that the world is changing and changing fast, and that there's need for the pact of the future that will reaffirm the principles of sound multilateral system, but also to have one that is fit for purpose, to fit the world that we see today, and to fit the world that is coming ahead of us. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, I would like to express our great gratitude to the various persons. First and foremost, we express our great gratitude to yourselves, the participants, for the very active engagement and constructive discussions that we've had. We'd like to really take this spirit of multi-stakeholderism into the various processes. Many of us have confirmed and reaffirmed our openness to hearing you, and we take this spirit back to New York. Be assured that we remain open to dialogue, to engage with civil society, to hear all voices in the process. I'd like to extend special thanks now to the co-chairs of the conference, Nodura Yusuf and Carol Agengo, my sister, Agengo. All the chairs, the co-chairs of subcommittees and working groups, Maher Nasser and his whole team at UNDGC for putting this conference together in a very short time. All the volunteers out there who provided support across this vast campus. We'd also like to recognize UNON, our landlady, Director General Zainab Bangura. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, really, as we all go back to our various corners, let it be remembered that there's a common thread that runs across all three processes. We have to rebuild trust in the promise and power of multilateralism. Let us all be successful in this quest because it will change lives. It matters for the future. It matters for the unborn children. Let us make this happen, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And now I am pleased to introduce the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres. You have the floor, sir.
My dear friend, President William Ruto of the Republic of Kenya, Excellencies, dear friends. Allow me to begin by extending my deepest condolences to all those affected by the devastating floods that have swept through Kenya and neighboring countries. I am heartbroken by the destruction, by the lives taken, by the families who have lost everything. I know that there are also many Brazilians in this room. I want to express to them also my deep solidarity. We honor all victims today on this public holiday, the National Tree Growing Day. And we recognize that together we can tackle the challenges ahead and prevent damage in the future. Determination to take that chance is what brings us together today. Dear friends, it is a pleasure to join you to close this civil society conference. And I thank the government and people of Kenya for hosting us all so graciously. And the co-chairs and organizing committees for all their work. I'm delighted by the diversity of the delegations here with us. You represent the breadth of civil society from international organizations to local groups. More than half the representatives here are women, and young people have turned out in force. I thank every one of you for your work, over the past 2 days and beyond. Time and again, I have witnessed the enormous impact of civil society in every corner of the world. I see you easing suffering, pushing for peace and justice, mobilizing for change. I see you feeding the hungry, standing up for truth, advancing gender equality, and propelling sustainable development. Many of you work at great personal risk. Climate activists are being criminalized and persecuted. Human rights defenders are threatened and humanitarians killed. I salute you, I thank you, and I ask you to keep working with us to build a better world. Today, we are entangled in crisis. Sustainable development is under threat. Conflicts are erupting with alarming frequency and horrifying results. Inequality and poverty are tearing societies apart. Many developing countries are being suffocated by debt and the cost of living crisis. Climate chaos is knocking communities off their feet, with the poorest suffering the most. And new technologies, particularly artificial intelligence, are creating new threats while fueling old bigotries and divisions. These terrible trends are playing out brutally here in Africa, where conflicts rage, extreme weather turbocharged by the climate crisis is tearing through communities with appalling consequences. The deadly floods here in Kenya are a prime example, and millions of people are on the far end of the digital divide. Dear friends, these crises demand international solutions, but the international system is not up to the task. The United Nations Security Council is paralyzed by geopolitical divides, incapable of acting together on clear violations of international law. The international financial system is outdated, dysfunctional, and unjust. Debt relief mechanisms are totally inadequate, leaving countries marooned in the sea of exorbitant interest payments and debt service costs. Many international institutions mirror the world in which they were founded almost 80 years ago. Developing countries are underrepresented and underserved, and civil society is often marginalized. We need to reform and revitalize multilateralism so that it reflects the realities of today and is fit to face the challenges ahead. The report I presented on our common agenda sets out a vision for a more inclusive, networked and effective multilateralism. A multilateralism where the contributions of civil society are recognized as central, not a token or an afterthought. And this ambition reflects the vital role you play. I have long admired a brilliant German philosopher, Jürgen Habermas, probably the one that has had more influence in my political philosophical thinking when I was young. One of his key ideas is on intercommunication between civil society and the political realm in modern democracies, how that is essential to those democracies and how it shapes decision-making and is vital to creating laws and policies that are acceptable to citizens. In other words, at the national level, civil society is an essential bridge between people and their representatives, part of the glue that holds democracies together. And what is true for national politics must be true for global politics. And so I believe it is crucial to establish dialogue between political decision makers and civil society within all our international institutions. And this is key to rebuilding trust and restoring legitimacy, and to ensuring international decisions are shaped by the concerns, the values, and the experiences of people across the globe. Dear friends, the Summit of the Future is a key moment to drive forward our vision for a renewed multilateralism. On the road to the summit, we are striving to fully engage civil society, and the summit itself aims to push progress on key issues and strengthen and update multilateralism so that we can manage both the risks and opportunities ahead for the good of all humanity. Turbocharging the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, unlocking finance for climate action and development, and driving progress towards deep reform of the international financial architecture so that it corresponds to the realities of today's economy and so that it can provide an effective safety net for developing countries in moments as difficult as the present one. And the same naturally applies to the Security Council of the United Nations. Today we must create a new emergency platform so we can collaborate as soon as crises hit, renew governments of outer space to reduce risks and reap benefits, embed young people at the heart of decision-making in multilateralism, and agree on ways to consider the interests of future generations in today's decisions. We must close digital divides and move towards new governance structures for new technologies, harnessing artificial intelligence as a force for good for all humanity, not just for the rich. And we must revitalize our collective approach to peace and security with a new agenda for peace. That means prioritizing prevention and changing our approach. Recognizing that conflicts do not spring from nowhere, and embracing an expansive model, one that encompasses human rights, gender, sustainable development, and the links between climate and security. That is the true prevention, not just simply talking to some politicians to see if they don't start a war. Priorities are now backwards, with record levels of spending for arms and budget cuts for social sectors for people. We need to reposition disarmament at the center of the international agenda and act urgently to create a world free from nuclear weapons. And we need to tackle the sinister danger of lethal autonomous weapons, outlawing arms capable of taking human life without any human control and no accountability. Across all of these areas, human rights and gender equality are critical, and so is the contribution of the civil society. Dear friends, when we see the heartbreaking record number of civilians killed in Gaza, with our appeals for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, the release of all hostages, and unimpeded humanitarian access falling on deaf ears. When we see a civil war ravaging Sudan, with two leaders that do not seem to care about the tremendous suffering of their own people. When we see conflict unabated in the Sahel, the Great Lakes, and the Horn of Africa, we understand that something is fundamentally wrong in the present world order, as if the Charter of the United Nations, international law, international humanitarian law, human rights, and basic human decency no longer matter. We won't give up in our struggle to change this situation, to push for peace, justice, and human rights, and I know that you won't give up either. My best hope for the future is you. Dear friends, we need to be informed by your frontline know-how. We need your can-do attitude to overcome obstacles and find innovative solutions. And we need you to use your networks, knowledge and contacts to implement solutions and to persuade governments to act. Your contributions have been indispensable, and I thank you. And your new impact coalitions promise a new era of engagement. These models of collaboration span ages, regions and sectors, and focus civil society's energy and expertise for maximum impact on the challenges we face. I invite you to bring this spirit to the action days we are holding as the Summit of the Future will begin. And I ask you to engage your national governments, using your channels and networks to demand ambitious commitments at the summit, not business as usual. Dear friends, the Summit of the Future is a chance to push progress on the issues that matter to you and to us. A chance that cannot be missed. Our fight is one fight, creating a better world and a brighter future for all. Together, let's seize this chance and make the Summit of the Future really count. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. And now it is my distinct honor to introduce His Excellency, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, and our wonderful host country, not just for this conference, but also for our UN headquarters here. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me first ask my good friend, Your Excellency Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations. I know you told me not to use the word His Excellency, but I have to, on this occasion only. Your Excellency, Madam Zainab Bangura, Director General of the United Nations Office in Nairobi and the landlord. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is true that I asked Caro when I walked in, and normally I'm used to small groups of civil society. But today, this is phenomenal. And congratulations that we have a diverse body of civil society from all continents in Nairobi. On behalf of the government and people of Kenya, welcome. Caro and Ms. Yusuf, I must say, have done an outstanding job. I must also commend my friend Mithika. Mithika is Kenyan, but I'm not responsible for his short speech. In any case, I hope all of you have enjoyed your stay in our country, and I'm delighted to hear that your discussions have been encouraging and productive, which bodes well for our progress, prosperity, and the future of both the people of Kenya and all of us as global citizens. It is a privilege to participate in the conference on shaping a future of global and sustainable progress. The role of civil society organizations in shaping our future is crucial, and I commend the organizers for providing a platform for such vital conversations and discussions. Embracing democratic values such as inclusivity, accountability, and transparency is essential for any meaningful progress. Ladies and gentlemen, we convene at a pivotal moment. Our world confronts challenges ranging from climate change, inequality, and global health crisis to armed conflict and technological disruptions. These issues impede our pursuit of the 2030 agenda. Yet, we also stand before a significant opportunity, which, coupled with advancement in technology and knowledge, could lead us to a more prosperous future, befitting all of us. Global challenges necessitate global responses. In an interconnected world, no nation can address these challenges in isolation and expect to succeed. The rise of networked social movements has elevated them from grassroots gatherings to influential forces that shape policy, drive change, and keep governments in check. Governments operate under intense pressures to deliver immediate results while pursuing sustainable development, which demands long-term integrated strategies. We recognize the non-state sector as vital for inclusive growth and sustainable development. Your role in championing policies that address the special needs of multiple and diverse constituencies, fostering change, ensuring social justice, advocating for protection of minorities, transparency and accountability is integral to any meaningful development. Your advocacy is crucial in defining our policies and actions to deliver sustainable development. This fact is now clearer than ever as Kenya pursues a bottom-up economic transformation agenda to deliver ample opportunities, create jobs, and provide critical social services aiming to significantly reduce poverty and enhance employment in the next 10 to 15 years. Better, a national transformation plan was developed through an extensive inclusive process involving actors from diverse agencies, interest groups, organizations, and sectors across the country from the grassroots up. This method of conceptualizing and developing our manifesto and developing agenda proved to be most effective in solving problems, meeting people's needs, and implementing growth strategies. Consequently, our plan represents a revolutionary approach to national development, focusing on ambitious targets and implementing bottom-up transformation strategies. These strategies prioritize expanding and aligning opportunities with the aspirations of micro, small, and medium enterprises, small-scale rural farmers, and millions of other Kenyans in the informal sector. Our development agenda is inclusive, with a special focus on those at the bottom of the economic pyramid. Addressing the causes of exclusion and marginalization as fundamental drivers of poverty and inequality has become a priority. Under Better, we understand development to be the inclusive and collective pursuit of diverse goods across numerous sectors and not a special and exclusive project of the executive or the public sector defined by narrow objectives or narrow interests. It is evident that for development to fulfill its purpose, it must be pursued by an all-of-society coalition from the bottom up, and its impact must be felt by citizens from all walks of life. I want to repeat this because it's important. I want to repeat this, that development cannot be the preserve or the exclusive preserve of the executive or those who monopolize power. For it to be meaningful, it must be an all-of-society coalition, bringing politicians, those in government, those in the opposition, civil society, non-governmental organizations, into one space that then can figure out what is the future that befits all of us. That is why our commitment to establishing a platform of engagement, bringing together micro, small, and medium enterprise and large business owners, civil society organizations, faith-based groups, youth, women, and others to address the nation's cohesion and inequality challenges is very central. Further, in recognition of the indispensable capacity of civil society sector in promoting education and awareness, inclusion, participation, and mobilizing collective action, we committed to operationalizing the Public Benefits Organizations Act. I made that commitment, and maybe civil society have been wondering what's happening. This act stuck in limbo for over a decade, yet it aims to expand the space for government and non-governmental organization partnership and collaboration. I am proud to announce to you that we have every intention of living up to our commitment. That is why yesterday, I know when I was sitting here with Caro, she was trying to persuade me. She didn't know that it is not necessary to wink to a man who is already coming for your date. That is why yesterday we executed the legal instruments to give the BPO Act effect as law in Kenya. Let me say this, that there's been a debate in Kenya as to what do we do with our public benefit organizations in Kenya, otherwise called non-governmental organizations. And there's been a robust and big debate as to what parameters do we apply. I see and I am persuaded that civil society has a real chance of making a contribution to making our country better. We may not necessarily agree, but that is the beauty of having diverse opinions. We end up with a better result if we harness all the viewpoints and finally come to a conclusion when we have considered all our diverse ideas, suggestions, and recommendations. The new BPO Act that was enacted almost 15 years ago, but we operationalized it yesterday. So, Caro, what you asked me to do, I already did. So, this framework, you know, the NGO Act put through our civil society a very chaotic mechanism where they had almost 8 pieces of legislation that governed their operation. We have now consolidated the operations of civil society into one predictable legal regime. They now can understand how registration will happen, how they can conduct their business. Secondly, and most importantly, we have made it now possible for public benefit organizations from outside Kenya not to be taken through unnecessary, rigorous explanations before they start operations in Kenya. We are determined to reinvigorate our development agenda by harnessing the organizing and advocacy power of civil society. Looking ahead to 2030, it is evident that significant work lies ahead, and simultaneously, the strategic landscape in which we must effect transformation is growing increasingly complex with emerging challenges and escalating crises. The imperative to generate wealth and employment, eliminate poverty and inequality, combat climate change, and address the root causes of conflict confront us with the urgent need to forge robust coalitions and mobilize frameworks of international cooperation to effectively confront these challenges. There is therefore no room to lock others outside. Ladies and gentlemen, we also acknowledge the pivotal role of our young people. Their stake in the future we must shape is substantial, and the consequences of our present actions will reverberate with them for years to come. It is our responsibility to meaningfully involve them in shaping that future by consistently taking deliberate steps to dismantle barriers hindering their participation in political and public life. As we conclude this conference, I urge all participants to deeply reflect on how we can translate the outcomes of our discussions into transformative and actionable results. We envision development aligned with the spirit and vision of this summit, emphasizing inclusive and impactful agenda that amplify the voices and agency of women and youth, empowering them to take initiatives that make a difference for the present and for the future. Kenya remains steadfast in its commitment to a strong partnership with an empowered civil society to advance our pursuit of sustainable, just, and inclusive future. Thank you very much, and welcome to Kenya. Asante sana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. President, for your statement. And this brings us to the end of our conference. I am sure that the 2024 United Nations Civil Society Conference in support of the Summit of the Future will be considered historic. Thank you, everyone here, for making it so impactful. I would like to ask you please to remain seated as the Secretary General and the President leave the room, and then we'll just for a moment after we'll remain seated in this room for a few closing remarks.